My parents sued to evict me so my sister could own her first home. In court, my 7-year-old raised her hand and said, "Can I show you something Daddy doesn't know?" The judge nodded. She held up her tablet, pressed play, and when it started, can you imagine smiling at your own grandchild, hugging her, all while secretly plotting to take her home away? Because that's exactly what my parents did to my 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, and me. They thought they had me cornered, but they never saw the real twist coming. A twist delivered by the bravest little girl I know, right there in a courtroom. My name is Abram, and at 34, I'm a single dad, just trying to give my daughter, Sophie, the stability I never truly had. 5 years ago, after my divorce, I bought my childhood home from my parents. It was supposed to be our fresh start, a safe haven where Sophie could grow up surrounded by familiar love. This house, it wasn't just walls and a roof to me. It was every memory. The oak tree in the backyard where my dad hung my first swing, the kitchen where Mom taught me her famous apple pie, the attic where I'd hide from thunderstorms. This house was security, consistency, love. Or at least, that's what I thought it represented to all of us. My parents, Frank and Diane, were hardworking. Dad was an engineer, Mom a teacher. They weren't wealthy, but we never went without. They preached loyalty, honesty, putting family first. Funny how those words taste like ash in my mouth now. Then there's Amanda, my younger sister. She was always the golden child. I'd bring home a B+, she'd have an A. I made junior varsity, she became captain. It wasn't malicious when we were kids, just the dynamic. I was the strong one, the responsible one. She was the sensitive one, the special one who deserved extra chances. "You're stronger, you can handle more," Mom would say. I believed it. I even took pride in it. But I had no idea how deep those patterns would cut until we were adults. My early adulthood was a rough ride. Married Jessica too young, probably, at 23. Sophie came along when I was 27, and for a while, life was perfect. I was building my career, Jessica was teaching, and Sophie was the light of our lives. But our marriage slowly crumbled. No drama, just a quiet drifting apart. We separated when Sophie was 3, finalized the divorce 6 months later. Joint custody, but Sophie lived mostly with me. Through all that, my parents seemed supportive, but there was always this subtle, "we told you so" vibe. They never really approved of Jessica. Meanwhile, Amanda chased big city dreams in Chicago, supposedly crushing it in advertising. My parents practically glowed talking about her glamorous life. Then, 5 years ago, my parents decided to downsize. They found a ranch house, and Dad suggested I buy the old family home. "This way Sophie gets to grow up in a family home," he said. It sounded perfect. The market was hot, and buying from them meant no bidding wars. We agreed on a price, $220,000, below market value. Since I couldn't get a conventional mortgage right after the divorce, we set up a private financing agreement. I'd make monthly payments directly to them for 15 years. Dad insisted we didn't need lawyers. "Family can trust family," he said. Oh, how those words echo now. For 5 years, it worked. I made every payment, sometimes more. Sophie and I settled in. I turned my old room into her princess castle. We planted a garden. We belonged here. Then, last year, everything changed. Amanda moved back. Her big city career had supposedly fallen apart, though she called it seeking work-life balance. She moved in with my parents. At first, it didn't seem to affect me. We'd still have Sunday dinners, where Amanda would dominate conversations, carefully editing her Chicago stories. I started noticing her lingering looks around my house, commenting on what she would do differently. I dismissed it. If only I'd seen the warning signs. It hit me on a Tuesday in September. I dropped Sophie at school, came home, and saw it, an official-looking envelope from the county courthouse. My first thought was my divorce. I was so wrong. So unbelievably wrong. Inside was a summons for an eviction hearing. The plaintiffs? Frank and Diane Miller. My own parents. They claimed I was substantially behind on payments and in violation of our agreement. They were exercising their right to reclaim the property. I read it 3 times. It had to be a mistake. My hands shook as I dialed my father. "Dad, there must be some mix-up. I just got court papers saying you're trying to evict me." The pause before he answered. It told me everything. "No mistake, Abram," he said, his voice cold, formal. "You've left us no choice. You haven't been meeting the terms." "What are you talking about? I've made every single payment. I have the receipts, The bank statements. There were other conditions, he interrupted. Property maintenance standards, and the payment schedule was adjusted last year. You've ignored it. My mind raced. There was no adjustment. The maintenance clause just said keep it in good condition, which I absolutely had. Dad, this is crazy. We never changed any terms. I need to speak to you and Mom in person. We're actually heading out of town, he said dismissively. Maybe it's better to let the legal process handle this now. His tone was a physical blow. I hung up. Mom's phone went straight to voicemail. I called Amanda next, hoping she knew nothing. She answered immediately. I was wondering when you'd call. No greeting. Amanda, what's going on? Mom and Dad are trying to evict me and Sophie from our home. It's not really your home, though, is it? She replied, a smirk in her voice. It's their house that they're letting you live in while making payments. And honestly, Abram, they've been more than patient. That's when the pieces started clicking into place. This is about you, isn't it? You want the house. Her laugh confirmed it before her words. Look, I'm starting over after Chicago. I need a place of my own. And Mom and Dad agree I deserve a chance to own my first home. You've had your opportunities. It's my turn now. My opportunities? I exploded. Amanda, I bought this house. I've been paying for it for 5 years. Sophie's entire stability is here. Don't be so dramatic. Kids are adaptable. And technically, you haven't bought it yet. The deed is still in Mom and Dad's name until you pay it off completely. She was right about that last part. The realization made my stomach drop. The deed wouldn't transfer for another 10 years. Legally, they still own the house. After Amanda, I spent an hour tearing through files. The agreement was clear about payments, which I'd followed. No mention of revised terms. I called the bank for my payment history. Then the courthouse. The clerk showed me a document I'd never seen, an addendum dated 8 months earlier, with what looked like my signature. It outlined substantially higher payments, strict maintenance, regular inspections. I had never signed it, never even seen it. The idea that they had forged my signature made me physically ill. When I picked Sophie up, her cheerful chatter about art class was the only normal thing in a day that had shattered my reality. Daddy, can we go to Grandma and Grandpa's this weekend? She asked innocently. Auntie Amanda said she'd show me how to make friendship bracelets. My heart sank. They'd been talking to my daughter, plotting this, probably setting the groundwork to explain why we'd need to move. Had they been poisoning her against me, too? Not this weekend, sweetheart. They're going out of town. At least that wasn't a lie. That evening, after Sophie was asleep, I called Jessica. Despite our differences, she was always fair about Sophie. They can't just take your home, she said, outraged. What kind of grandparents try to make their own granddaughter homeless? They don't see it that way. I replied, exhaustion heavy in my voice. In their minds, they're helping Amanda while teaching me a lesson about not being successful enough, I guess. You need a lawyer, Abram. A good one. She was right. This wasn't just about me. This was about protecting Sophie's home, her stability. If my parents and sister wanted a fight, they'd get one. What hurt most was the realization. They must have been planning this for months. Every Sunday dinner, every hug for Sophie, every I love you. They knew what they were doing. The family I thought I knew was a lie. Finding a lawyer felt impossible. 8 calls later, I found Marcus Patel, a young attorney building his practice. This is complicated, Marcus said, reviewing my documents. Private family agreements get messy because people skip legal steps, thinking trust is enough. He saw the issues with the addendum. Marcus agreed to take my case for a reduced rate. Don't give them any actual ammunition, he warned. Keep making payments exactly as outlined in the original agreement. The financial strain was immense. I took on freelance work, often working until 2 a.m. after Sophie was asleep. Marcus discovered their loophole. Our original agreement did have a clause about modifying terms for market conditions or maintenance. Vague enough for them to argue it gave them the right to create the addendum, even without my consent. Did you read every page? He asked. I admitted I hadn't. It was my parents, after all. I trusted them. That's what they're counting on, he sighed. But we have your bank records showing consistent payments and no notification of changes. That's something. Meanwhile, I had to deal with Sophie. Why don't we go to Grandma and Grandpa's anymore? She asked. Are they mad at us? I sat on her bed, trying to explain without burdening her. Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements about the house. Our house. Her small voice quivered. fear in her eyes. Yes, but you don't need to worry. I'm doing everything to make sure this stays our home. Does Aunt Amanda want our house? She asked, her insight shocking me. She told me which room would be hers when she lived here. She said I could visit and stay in the small room. My blood boiled. They'd explicitly been telling my daughter about their plans, preparing her. I kept my face neutral for Sophie. No matter what anyone says, this is our home, and I promise I'm doing everything I can to keep it that way. As court approached, the pressure from extended family mounted. My aunt called, saying I was being unreasonable. Your sister needs a fresh start. You could find another place. Sophie is young, she'll adjust. My uncle echoed it. Your parents are getting older, this stress isn't good for them. Think about the family. It was clear my parents and Amanda had been spinning a narrative, painting me as selfish. They conveniently left out the forged signature part and trying to evict a 7-year-old. 2 weeks before court, Marcus and I compiled everything. Payment records, bank statements, photos of the house. We even had a handwriting expert question the signature on the addendum. Be prepared, Marcus warned. Family court cases get ugly. They'll bring up every mistake you've ever made. Anything to paint you as irresponsible. I nodded. As long as Sophie keeps her home, they can say what they want about me. The night before we submitted our evidence, Amanda showed up. Sophie was at Jessica's. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me. She looked around my living room with a proprietary gaze that made my skin crawl. This could all be so much simpler if you just cooperate, she said. I've already got a buyer interested if I decide to sell. My suspicions were confirmed. This wasn't about a family home for her. This was about cash. So that's the plan. Get the house from me, then immediately flip it for profit. She shrugged. It's just business, Abram. I need capital to restart my career. Mom and Dad agree I deserve this opportunity. By stealing my home? The home where their granddaughter lives. Don't be so dramatic. Kids are resilient. And honestly, would Sophie really miss seeing the people next door having her own bathroom? These are luxuries, not necessities. Her cavalier dismissal of Sophie's stability ignited something primal in me. Get out of my house, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the rage building. Not your house yet, she smirked, but stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. You know, if you fight this, Mom and Dad are prepared to bring up everything. Your financial struggles after the divorce, that time you were late picking up Sophie because you fell asleep, even Jessica's new boyfriend, and how that might be affecting Sophie's home life. The threat was clear. They would attack my parenting. I closed the door, sank to the floor, and wondered how the people who were supposed to love us most could turn so cruel. What I didn't know then was that Sophie had left her tablet recording in the living room earlier that day, forgotten in her rush to pack. It had captured every word. 3 days before court, I came home to find my parents' car in the driveway, alongside Amanda's. They hadn't called. What are you doing here? I asked, feeling like an intruder in my own home. We're still the legal owners, Dad replied, not looking at me. We have the right to inspect. Mom at least looked uncomfortable. Amanda was in Sophie's room, opening closets. This closet has water damage, she announced. That's a maintenance violation. There's no water damage, I countered. Sophie spilled juice. I cleaned it. She made a note anyway. It was surreal, watching them move through the home where they'd raised me, now acting like cold-hearted landlords. Why are you really doing this? I finally asked. Not the legal excuse. An uncomfortable silence. Mom finally spoke. Amanda needs a fresh start. She's had some financial setbacks. So she gets my house. Sophie's home. That's the solution. It's not like that, Dad said, avoiding my eyes. Amanda has a solid plan. She'll be able to leverage the property equity. And she's going to sell it. I cut in. She already told me she has a buyer lined up. My parents exchanged a look. That's not necessarily true, Mom said carefully. Even if it is, Dad added, it would be her right. The property would be hers to do with as she sees fit. Amanda emerged from the hallway. I was thinking we could do this smoothly. I'd let you stay through the end of Sophie's school year, for example. That's generous, considering the market. Generous? I couldn't believe it. I've paid over $70,000 toward this house. I've made improvements. And you think letting us stay a few extra months before taking it is generous? You've been living here paying below market rates, Amanda countered. Mom and Dad have been subsidizing you this whole time. That's not true. We agreed on a fair price. I have the documentation. Documentation can be interpreted different ways, Dad said dismissively. The judge will decide. As they continued to justify, Sophie arrived home. She froze in the doorway, eyes wide. "Grandma, Grandpa, and Amanda," she exclaimed, then read the tension. Her smile faltered. Mom forced a bright smile. "There's our special girl. We were just talking about the house with your daddy." Sophie looked at me, uncertain. "Why don't you go start your homework, sweetie?" I forced a smile. She nodded, heading to her room, leaving her backpack, tablet partially visible, in the living room. Once Sophie was out of earshot, the conversation turned uglier. "You know, Abram," Amanda said, lowering her voice, "we've been very careful not to mention certain things in our filing. Your history of overworking to exhaustion. That incident when Sophie showed up without lunch. That was during a massive project deadline. And it was twice, not 3 times. I defended, face flushing with shame, despite knowing I was a good father. The court might not see those as minor oversights, Dad said. Particularly if we also mention Jessica's concerns about your irregular hours affecting Sophie's routine. Jessica has no concerns. She'd be furious if she knew you were using our co-parenting relationship this way. We'd prefer not to bring these things up," Mom added, deceptively gentle. "But if you insist on fighting, we need to present the full picture. They were threatening to attack my parenting to win a property dispute. My own parents. Sophie's stability means nothing to you, does it?" I asked, the realization hitting me. You'd uproot her, traumatize her with a court battle over her father's fitness. Also, Amanda can cash in on a house she didn't pay for. That's unfair. Mom protested. We love Sophie. You love the idea of her, I corrected. The perfect grandchild you can show off. But her actual well-being, her need for stability, those are inconveniences you're willing to sacrifice. Amanda scoffed. So dramatic. It's a house, Abram. Just a building. Sophie will be fine. It's her home, I said, my voice breaking. It's the only stability she's had since the divorce. The place where she feels safe. She can feel safe somewhere else, too, Dad said firmly. This discussion is over. We'll see you in court unless you come to your senses and agree to vacate voluntarily. They left without another word. I sank onto the couch, head in my hands, trying to compose myself before Sophie came back out. Daddy, are they gone? A small voice broke through my thoughts. I looked up. Sophie stood in the hallway, tablet clutched to her chest, eyes wide. Yes, sweetheart, they're gone. I patted the couch. Come sit. She climbed up next to me. They want to take our house, don't they? I debated sugarcoating it, but decided against it. She deserved the truth. Yes, and Amanda wants to live here. And Grandma and Grandpa are helping her. But where would we go? If that happened, we'd find another nice place. But I'm doing everything I can to make sure we stay right here where we belong. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I recorded them. What do you mean, honey? On my tablet. You showed me how to make voice memos for school, remember? When they came in, they were saying mean things about us before you got home. So, I pressed record and left it on the table. When I went to get the door for you, my heart sank, thinking what she might have heard. Oh, Sophie, I'm sorry you heard unkind things. It's okay, she said with surprising maturity. But I got them saying the bad stuff about selling our house and saying those lies about you. Is that important? I stared at my 7-year-old daughter, who in her innocent wisdom had possibly captured the very evidence we needed. It might be very important, Sophie. Can I see? She unlocked her tablet, opened the voice memo app. Nearly 45 minutes long. I pressed play. Amanda's voice filled the room. Once we get the house, I already have a buyer willing to go $320, maybe more if we update the kitchen first. That's a $100,000 profit after paying off what Mom and Dad are owed. Then my father's voice. Just don't mention that part in court. The judge needs to believe this is about you wanting a family home, not a financial transaction. And my mother's hesitant admission. I still don't feel right about that addendum. Abram never actually signed it. Then Dad. He would have had to eventually. This just speeds things up. Besides, he's had the house at below market value for years. It's our turn to benefit now. The recording continued, capturing their inspection, their threats. Every damning word, every admission, all preserved by a child who knew right from wrong better than the adults who raised me. That night, I called Marcus. His excitement was palpable. This changes everything, he said. This recording proves their intent to defraud you in the court. The admission about the forged addendum alone would likely get the case dismissed. Can we use it? I asked. I didn't record it. Sophie did. It's complicated, he admitted. But I think we can. In this state, recording conversations you're a party to is legal. Sophie was in her own home, captured conversations in common areas. I believe this is admissible. For the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope. My daughter, in her simple understanding of fairness, might have saved our home. The night before court, I sat on Sophie's bed. Are you scared about tomorrow? She asked, always perceptive. A little, I admitted. But having the truth on our side helps. Will I have to talk to the judge? Marcus had prepared for this. Maybe, but only if you feel comfortable, and only a few simple questions. She nodded solemnly. I can do it. I can tell the truth. I know you can, sweetheart. You're the bravest person I know. Braver than you? She asked with a small smile. Much braver than me, I assured her. As I turned to leave, her small voice stopped me. Daddy, no matter what happens with the house, we'll be okay, right? Because we have each other. In that moment, my 7-year-old showed more wisdom and strength than anyone else. That's absolutely right, I said, my voice thick with emotion. As long as we have each other, we'll always be okay. The county courthouse was an imposing building. Sophie held my hand tightly as we climbed the steps, her other hand clutching the tablet in her backpack. Jessica had taken the morning off to support us. Remember, she whispered to Sophie, you don't have to be scared. Just tell the truth. Inside, my parents stood stiffly. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom gave a small, uncertain wave. Amanda scrolled on her phone, as if this were a minor inconvenience. Marcus met us, his demeanor all business. Ready? He asked. I nodded, my mouth dry, heart racing. And you must be Sophie, he said, crouching. Your dad tells me you're very brave. She nodded. I brought my tablet, she whispered. Perfect. We may not need it, but it's good to have. The bailiff called our case. We filed in. The judge, a woman with silver hair and piercing eyes, looked over her glasses. My parents' attorney presented their case. Generous parents, ungrateful son, neglected property, revised agreement. Furthermore, Your Honor, he concluded, the plaintiffs have another child in need of stable housing. They're simply exercising their legal right to repurpose their asset to help both their children fairly. Marcus took notes. When it was our turn, he approached the bench. Your Honor, this case is not about property maintenance or payment schedules. It's about an attempt to defraud my client through forged documents and false claims. He presented my payment records, bank statements, photos of the home's excellent condition. Then, the addendum. My client never saw, discussed, or signed this document. We have an expert who questions its authenticity. But more importantly, we have evidence that the plaintiffs themselves have admitted to creating this addendum without my client's knowledge or consent. My parents' attorney objected. Your Honor, no such evidence has been submitted. We only discovered this evidence recently, Marcus explained. We're prepared to present it today. The judge considered this. I'll allow it, with the understanding that opposing counsel has the right to review and respond. Marcus glanced at me. We had discussed this. Your Honor, the evidence was captured by Mr. Miller's 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, who is present in the courtroom today. With the court's permission, she would like to address you directly about what she discovered. My parents and Amanda exchanged alarmed glances. Their attorney looked utterly confused. The judge's stern expression softened slightly, looking at Sophie. Is the child comfortable speaking in court? She is, Your Honor, Marcus confirmed. I'll allow it. Sophie, would you please come forward? Sophie squeezed my hand, then walked to the front, her small shoulders squared with determination. The bailiff adjusted the microphone. Hello, Sophie, the judge said kindly. Do you understand you need to tell the truth? Yes, ma'am. Sophie replied, clear as a bell. Go ahead and tell me what you'd like to share. Sophie took a deep breath. Can I show you something my daddy doesn't know about? She asked, voice steady. The judge nodded. You may. Sophie unzipped her backpack, pulled out her tablet. I recorded Grandma and Grandpa and Aunt Amanda in our house when they came over. They were saying mean things and telling lies. My parents' attorney immediately rose. Your Honor, if this is a recording made without consent, it was in our house, Sophie interrupted, her indignation overcoming her nervousness. My house, and they were saying they were going to take it away from me and Daddy. The judge raised a hand, silencing the attorney. I'd like to hear what Sophie has to say. She turned back to Sophie. Why did you make this recording? Because they were being mean and not telling the truth. My daddy always says that the truth is important, even when it's hard. Pride swelled in my chest. Can I play it for you? Sophie asked, finger hovering. The judge nodded. Yes, you may. Sophie pressed play. Amanda's voice filled the courtroom. Once we get the house, I already have a buyer willing to go $320, maybe more if we update the kitchen first. That's a $100,000 profit after paying off what Mom and Dad are owed. Then my father's voice. Just don't mention that part in court. The judge needs to believe this is about you wanting a family home, not a financial transaction. Then my mother's hesitant admission. I still don't feel right about that addendum. Abram never actually signed it. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. My parents' faces drained of color. Amanda stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Their attorney looked like he wanted to disappear. Sophie continued playing the recording, including the parts where they threatened to attack my parenting and admitted the real reason. Not for Amanda to have a home, but to flip it for profit. When it ended, the courtroom was silent. Sophie looked up at the judge. They lied and they were going to take away my home. Is that allowed? The judge's expression was unreadable. Thank you for bringing this to the court's attention, Sophie. You were very brave today. Sophie nodded solemnly. Can I go back to my dad now? Yes, you may. As she returned, I wrapped my arm around her, whispering, I'm so proud of you. The judge turned to my parents' attorney. Counselor, would you like to respond to this evidence? He conferred hurriedly with my parents and Amanda, their whispers growing heated. Finally, he turned back. Your Honor, my clients would like to request a brief recess to discuss this new information. Granted. 15 minutes. As they filed out, Amanda shot me a venomous glare. Mom wouldn't look at me. Only Dad hesitated, glancing back at Sophie with an expression I couldn't interpret. Shame, perhaps, or just surprise at being outmaneuvered by a 7-year-old. During the recess, Marcus was cautiously optimistic. The recording is damning. They admitted to creating fraudulent documents and misleading the court. No judge would rule in their favor after hearing that. When court resumed, my parents' attorney approached the bench, visibly less confident. Your Honor, in light of the new evidence, my clients would like to withdraw their eviction claim. The judge nodded, but her expression remained severe. Before I accept this withdrawal, I want to be clear about what happened here today. This court has heard evidence suggesting an attempt to defraud both the defendant and the court itself through falsified documents and misleading testimony. She looked directly at my parents and Amanda. I could refer this matter for criminal investigation. Mortgage fraud and forging documents are serious offenses. However, given the family relationship involved and the withdrawal of the claim, I will instead dismiss this case with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled. Turning to me, she continued, Mr. Miller, I strongly advise you to consult with your attorney about creating a more formal and secure arrangement regarding the property, preferably with a proper real estate attorney. Yes, Your Honor, I agreed, relief washing over me. As for the existing agreement, she added, this court finds it valid and enforceable as originally written, without the alleged addendum. The plaintiffs will continue to honor those terms until the property is paid in full or the parties reach a new, properly documented agreement. With a final stern look at my parents, she concluded, case dismissed. The gavel's sharp crack echoed through the courtroom, marking the end of a nightmare. Sophie squeezed my hand. We won, Daddy, she whispered. We get to keep our home. Yes, sweetheart, I replied, hugging her close. Thanks to you, we do. Outside, a light rain began to fall, matching the somber mood despite our victory. Jessica hugged Sophie, telling her how proud she was. Marcus shook my hand. Congratulations. Your daughter is quite something. She really is. I agreed, watching Sophie jump in a small puddle, her concerns already shifting to more age-appropriate interests. As Marcus left, I saw my parents and Amanda huddled under the awning, arguing. Part of me wanted to walk away, but there were things that needed to be said. Sophie, wait here for just a minute. Stay where I can see you. She nodded, continuing her puddle exploration. I approached my family, if I could still call them that. My father noticed me first, his expression hardening. I suppose you're here to gloat. No, I replied evenly. I'm here to make something very clear. What you tried to do was unforgivable. Not just to me, but to Sophie, your own granddaughter. We never meant to hurt Sophie, Mom began, her voice pleading. You only meant to take away the only home she's known since the divorce. I finished for her. To lie in court, to forge documents, to threaten my reputation as a father. Tell me exactly which part wasn't meant to hurt us. Amanda stepped forward, eyes blazing. You had no right to record us without permission. That's illegal. Actually, in this state, it's perfectly legal to record conversations in your own home, I countered. Besides, I didn't record you. Sophie did. A 7-year-old child who recognized dishonesty better than her own grandparents and aunt. This isn't over. Amanda hissed. You've ruined everything. Do you know how much I needed that money? Your financial problems aren't my responsibility, I replied. And certainly not Sophie's. If you needed help, there were 1,000 better ways to ask for it than trying to steal our home. Dad put his hand on Amanda's shoulder, silencing her. What happens now? He asked, his voice gruff, but with an undertone of uncertainty. Now, I'll continue making payments according to our original agreement. But our relationship is a different matter. I need time to process what you were willing to do to us. You can't keep Sophie from us, Mom said, her voice quavering. We're her grandparents. I'm not going to use Sophie as a weapon the way you tried to use the house, I assured her. But any contact will be supervised, at least for now. She needs time to understand why the people who should have loved her tried to take away her home. We do love her, Mom insisted. Love isn't just a feeling, Mom. It's actions. And your actions showed exactly where Sophie and I stand with you. Somewhere below Amanda's financial convenience. I turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. If any of you ever again threaten my home or my relationship with my daughter, I won't hesitate to use that recording for a restraining order. I hope we're clear. Without waiting for a response, I walked back to Sophie, took her hand, and led her to the car. In the rearview mirror, I could see my parents and sister still standing in the rain, looking smaller, diminished by the truth of what they'd tried to do. That evening, after Sophie was in bed, I sat alone in the living room. The victory felt hollow, surrounded by the ruins of what I'd thought was a loving family. The phone rang, my mother calling for the 3rd time. I let it go to voicemail. A text followed. Please let us explain. We made a terrible mistake. Too little, too late. The next day, I filed paperwork for a temporary restraining order against all 3 of them. Marcus also helped me begin the process of getting a new, legally sound purchase agreement. Word spread quickly. Neighbors brought casseroles. Sophie's teacher called. Even my boss was understanding. But what surprised me most was the call from Pastor Jim. I've heard what happened, Abram, he said. Your parents came to see me yesterday. They're deeply ashamed. They should be. I replied, bitterness raw. Yes, he agreed surprisingly. What they did was wrong on every level. But they're also lost right now, realizing the terrible mistake they made. Pastor, with all due respect, this wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting an appointment. They planned this for months. They forged documents. They tried to make my daughter homeless for profit. He was quiet. You're right. And I've told them as much. I'm not calling to ask you to forgive them immediately. I'm calling because I care about you and Sophie, and I want you to know support is available. His kindness nearly broke me. Thank you, I managed. Right now, I'm just trying to get through each day and keep things stable for Sophie. How is she doing? Better than me, honestly. Kids have a remarkable ability to adapt, he assured me. She knows something serious happened, but she's focused on the fact that you get to stay in your home. The deeper betrayal doesn't fully register yet. And with you as her father, she'll learn how to process it in a healthy way when the time comes. After we hung up, I found myself on the back porch, staring at the oak tree where my father had hung my swing. The memory felt tainted. Would I ever be able to look at this house without thinking of their betrayal? Sophie found me there. Daddy, are you sad? She asked, leaning against my knee. A little, I admitted, but also very proud of you. Are Grandma and Grandpa ever coming back? I chose my words carefully. Not for a while. They made some very bad choices that hurt us, and we all need time to think about what happened. She considered this. They were wrong to try to take our house. Yes, they were. And they were wrong to say mean things about you. You're the best, Daddy. My throat tightened. Thank you, sweetheart. Can I ask something else? Anything. Can we paint my room purple now since we're staying? Her simple, forward-looking question broke the spell of melancholy. This was what mattered. Building our life together, making this house truly ours. Absolutely, I promised. Purple it is. In the weeks that followed, we established new routines and boundaries. I kept my word about supervised contact, letting my parents see Sophie in neutral locations. These visits were awkward and strained, but I refused to use Sophie as a pawn. Amanda declined to participate, moving to a neighboring city without saying goodbye. The restraining order remained, as did the original payment arrangement. My parents made no further attempts to modify it. Each month, I sent a check, accompanied by a brief, formal receipt confirmation request. My mother's attempts at reconciliation continued through texts and letters. Some days, I considered responding. Other days, the memory of what they tried to do made it impossible. My father remained mostly silent, though Pastor Jim told me he was working through things. Sophie and I focused on making our house thoroughly our own. We painted her room purple. We planted new flowers. We adopted a rescue cat, Pumpkin. Slowly, painfully, we began to heal. What helped most was the knowledge that when it truly mattered, we had stood together and fought for our home, and we won. 6 months after the court case, spring arrived with new beginnings. The cherry tree bloomed, and Sophie insisted on taking pictures of it daily. Her wisdom, as always, stopped me in my tracks. To remember how pretty things can become. Our lives transformed. The betrayal forced me to recognize that blood connections don't automatically equal unconditional love. I'd spent years accepting less from my parents. No more. I found a support group for single parents. What your parents did was abuse of power and trust, said Tanya, a new friend. Recognizing that isn't being unforgiving, it's being honest. Her words helped me set boundaries without guilt. I maintained supervised visits, but refused to pretend everything was normal. Sophie was thriving. Her teacher wrote, "Sophie has an extraordinary ability to stand up for what's right while remaining compassionate." She spoke openly about the court case with a 7-year-old's clarity. My grandparents and aunt tried to take our house, but I recorded them saying mean things and showed the judge. Now they can't take it, and they're sorry. Sometimes grown-ups make really bad choices, too. Her resilience humbled me daily. 3 months after court, my parents requested a meeting without Sophie. We met at a coffee shop. Mom cried. Dad stared at his hands. They offered apologies that still somehow contained justifications. We got caught up trying to help Amanda, Mom explained. She was in such financial trouble. And you thought sacrificing my stability was acceptable collateral damage. I finished. We were wrong, Dad said simply. It was the first time I'd heard him admit fault so directly. I didn't offer easy forgiveness, but I agreed to continue supervised visits with Sophie, with the possibility of revisiting the restrictions later. Amanda remained distant. Some relationships, I learned, might be beyond repair, and that was okay. The most unexpected development came from my neighbor, Leah. She'd lived beside us for 3 years, but we'd been just friendly waves. During the court drama, she'd noticed my stress and started bringing over home-cooked meals. What began as neighborly concern blossomed into genuine friendship. She joined us for movie nights, helped with the garden. Sophie adored her. You know, Leah said one evening on the porch, what happened with your family was terrible, but the way you protected Sophie, how you've handled everything, it says a lot about who you are. Her words, and the warmth in her eyes, sparked something I hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time since the divorce, I felt open to the possibility of a new connection. On the legal front, Marcus helped me secure a proper mortgage through a credit union, allowing me to pay off my parents completely and transfer the deed to my name. The closing costs strained my budget, but the peace of mind was worth every penny. The day I received the official deed, I framed it and hung it in the hallway. Does this mean Grandma and Grandpa can never try to get our house again? Sophie asked. That's right. It's officially ours now. 100%. She studied the document. Seriously. Good, because I like our house. Me too, sweetheart. We embarked on a whole house refresh. Fresh paint, some new furniture, rearranging spaces. With each change, the house felt less like the place where I grew up and more like the home Sophie and I created together. My favorite addition was a corkboard wall in the kitchen, where Sophie displayed her artwork. Among her drawings, I pinned a quote, "Family isn't about blood. It's about who is willing to hold your hand when you need it most." On a sunny Saturday, 6 months and 2 weeks after the court case, my parents came for their first unsupervised visit at our home. It was a tentative step toward a new kind of relationship, not a return to what was, but perhaps the beginning of something healthier. As they admired the changes, complimenting Sophie's purple room and the thriving garden, I watched them with clear eyes. They were flawed people who made a terrible mistake, driven by misplaced priorities. I would never fully trust them again, but perhaps we could build something new from the ashes. You've made this place your own, Dad observed. Yes, I agreed. That's exactly what we've done. Later, after they left and Sophie was helping me make dinner, she asked a question that showed her remarkable perception. Daddy, are you still mad at Grandma and Grandpa? I considered how to answer truthfully. I'm not as angry as I was, I finally said, but I'm still sad about what happened, and it will take more time before I can fully trust them again. She nodded, carefully tearing lettuce for our salad. I think they're really sorry. I think so too. Can people do really bad things and still be good people? The question struck me with its depth. That's a complicated question, I admitted. I think people are a mix of good and bad choices. One really bad choice doesn't make someone all bad forever, but it does mean they need to work hard to show they've changed and won't make that same bad choice again. Like when I lied about brushing my teeth, and then I had to prove I was trustworthy again by showing you my toothbrush every night. I smiled at her comparison. Something like that. Yes, just on a much bigger scale. She considered this. I think we should give them a chance to prove they're trustworthy again. Not with our house, but with other stuff. I think you're right, I agreed. And that's exactly what we're doing. That night, after tucking Sophie in, I sat on the back porch. Reflecting on the past year, the betrayal had shattered my understanding of family. But from those broken pieces, Sophie and I had created something stronger. We'd learned that homes aren't just buildings, but the safe spaces we create together. That family isn't defined by DNA, but by respect, honesty, and unwavering support. That sometimes the people who should love us most fail us terribly, and that's not our fault or responsibility to fix. Most importantly, we learned that when the foundations shift beneath you, it's possible to build again on firmer ground. The house that had been the center of so much pain was now truly ours. Not just legally, but in all the ways that mattered. Every wall held our stories. Every room contained our choices. It wasn't my childhood home anymore, or the house my parents sold me, or the property they tried to take back. It was simply home, our home. And nobody could take that away. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who betrayed your trust? What boundaries did you set to protect yourself and your children? Share your stories in the comments below. If this journey of fighting for what's right resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps others find these stories of resilience and healing. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is more reliable than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength in your own battles for what's right.